Good afternoon, everybody. It is 12:59. Actually, it is now 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Welcome to Decrypt Markets. We are in a nice little move of a market here, but before I say that, I hope you all had a good weekend. Hope it was a good Labor Day weekend. Those of us in the States had a extended weekend or holiday, as some people call it. And and over that whole time, we had a pretty huge and pretty big look at the entire. Sorry, I'm like looking at two things at once here and trying to talk, which doesn't work. We've had a pretty nice, sizable move up. In fact, if we want to take a look at the daily here, how long have we been in an uptrend? It has been 21 days that we've been in an uptrend. And actually, hang on one second. I'm just going to stop streaming and then restart one more time. And we're back. Okay. Sorry about that. We had to reset something. So, looking at that entire move, the 21 days that we've moved up. Also, I want us to take a look at the percentage gain that we've had. That's a 25% gain. We've added $1,500, roughly $1,500 to this market in the last 21 days, and that is something to pay attention to because given that we've been in a we've already had our bear move, we're in a consolidation range here, and so that's pretty typical for us to experience a little bit of exaltation. Is that the word? No, I don't think so. Just looking at the style of this move, it's been pretty bullish because if you remember last week we were discussing, by the way, if you hear some pounding and stuff, it's because contractors are here again. There it is. Sorry about that. Just have to put up with it like I'm putting up with it. So we have the breakout here of this linear regression channel, and we've been staying above it. We've been testing that angle. The thing is that what's really nice is last week when we were discussing this drop down to here, that this was the sign that we wanted to look at and that we wanted to pay attention to was is the bull phase starting, and is it looking like something that has an honest move to it? Is there integrity behind the move? Because we had this drive up until the 28th. Then we had some some selling pressure. And typically what we've experienced in this the whole year, actually, it's hard to believe it's been we're going on a whole year here, but ever since December on to now, any type of a rally that has been over 2 weeks has been met with very strong selling pressure. But we've had a little bit of a change here. Just if you've been watching the markets hour by hour, you've kind of noticed a change in the direction of things. For instance, all of this activity right up here. Now, this doesn't look very healthy to me. I don't like how this looks, but we have these. There have been definite attempts to drive lower, but that has not happened. So we continue to see Bitcoin catching a bid and the whole market really being propped up pretty nicely here. Last week we had some trades that we looked at. This was on Friday. So one of them was Neo. If I can find where I put that. Right. Yeah. Neo was a long trade idea that we put in at 2083. That one is nicely in profit. That's a gain of 2083, about 16% on that, 17% gain on that one. We had a long on ZEC. This one rallied up, traded down, flattened out, and looks like it's doing it again. Am I not seeing? Oh, it's right there. ZEC, the long we wanted here was at 153, so we're not very far up on that one. This one is definitely forming a condition for a long trade again, though. It's just taking a little while longer. EOS, we wanted to go long. Had a long trade at 625. That was on a pullback. That was with the Ichimoku system. Ooh, don't want that one. We want to go long on a pullback at 625. Actually, we got up as high as 680, but now we're just kind of resting above the hourly cloud here. So not a whole lot of stuff to write home about there. OMG was a good one that just turned out very nice just recently. The OMG BTC pair. Got the contractors here again. Sorry if you're just showing up and you're wondering what some of those sounds are. That is the contractors. So we've got what did I do? 628. That's what we wanted to get long in at 628. That was based on the daily Ichimoku chart. On the daily, we wanted a break of the previous high, and that was this over here, right? What was it? I put that. What was that? That was the day. Was that? Oh yeah, that was this high. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, just talking to myself. 628 break of that previous high, and one of the things that you kind of get to notice about the Ichimoku system, at least on the daily, is that, and I was talking about this with the Forex Lens subscribers this morning, is that when you see price cross above the conversion line and the baseline, and then you see the conversion line cross above the baseline, that is it's called a TK cross, that Tenkan-sen and Kijun-sen. When you see that happen below the cloud and you're near the cloud here, that's generally a good sign that you can take the long and that you'll have a good high probability trade of that trend changing, because the dailies, not very often do you get a cross above here and then it gets halted and you drop back down. That doesn't happen that often. It does on shorter, faster time frames, but otherwise that's not very common here. So the OMG trade worked out very nicely. Then there was the Ripple trade. That was the Ripple dollar pair. We wanted to go long at 34.27. I think I accidentally pulled that one off here. XRP. That was this one's actually end up being this is a loser right now. It's at 34.27 is what we wanted to go long at, and it's just kind of hanging out here. Ripple's actually got quite a bit of competition up against Stellar Lumens. And Stellar's actually got IBM working with them. So IBM's working with the Stellar Lumens blockchain for international payments. Stellar Lumens really a super fantastic and excellent way for institutions, not just banks, to settle payments internationally very, very cheaply. So this is Stellar Lumens XLM is way better than Ripple. Ripple's crap. Okay. Ripple. Where's the next one? Then Dash. Dash ended up being a nice trade too. Dash, we wanted to go long on the Dash dollar at 193.90. Obviously that worked out. That was based on the 1 hour Ichimoku, where we wanted a break of the prior candle high, and that was on the 31st. That was back here, where we wanted a break of the prior candle high. We wanted price to go above this high here, and then price was above the cloud. Then that would also fulfill the condition of the lagging span crossing above the cloud. That's exactly what we had happen. So that has turned out to be a very nice trade in Dash. And now it looks like it's setting up for just another breakout here. So we see a breakout, consolidation, and then now it looks like it's setting up for just another breakout Again, apologize for the banging here. It's the contractors. All right, what else do we got going on? Let's zip on over back to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin continuing to catch a bid and rise higher here. The laggard definitely is Ethereum. Ethereum is not doing much of a damn thing. It is just sitting here and not really moving at all. It has been stuck in this range, you know, almost for an entire month now. We've been stuck at this 280, 290 zone. This 618 Fibonacci retracement has been sitting as the major support. We just have not had any drive higher. I would expect that to change, though. I would expect Ethereum to catch a bid here pretty soon. There is the CBOE, the Chicago Board of Options Exchange. They are coming out with a ETF futures contract, or not an ETF. I'm sorry, it's just a futures contract. If you remember, CBOE, they were the first ones to do a futures contract for Bitcoin. It's not very liquid. The CMEs is more, but yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Hold on one second. I'm actually sending that off. Okay. Ethereum, here we go. That's going well. Bitcoin's doing its thing. Litecoin has actually caught a nice bid. Now, Litecoin, where it's crossed here, this is something that we were talking about last week, is when price crosses an angle, the rule of all Gann's rule of all angles states that when an angle breaks, it'll move to test the next one. That's because angles, as they're crossed and tested, they weaken over time. And so that has worked out perfectly. You know, if you've been with us for any amount of time and you've seen these charts, you'll notice that I haven't changed them. You know, I haven't done anything different with them. Haven't altered them to fit the current price action. This is just how they look. And we can see that, you know, the market geometry is so very effective. It kind of gives you the pattern and the roadmap of where things happen, because without it, you know, it's hard to determine why things stopped here, but it's easy to see why these things stopped here, because these tops here were met right at this angle. And so that we break it, the next move is higher to test this angle here. So that's at the 77 value area. And it looks like Litecoin wants to continue to maybe try and do that. It's moving up on lower volume, though. That is not always a good sign. It's actually rarely a good sign. But, you know, it's volume's kind of a funky component of cryptocurrencies. One thing I do want to point out is this. So this is going to blow your mind. This is the Bitfinex short interest. Okay. So this is kind of an inverse chart. So basically where you see this entire rise here, these are all people who went short Bitcoin. Okay. And they did that on the 1st of September. Okay. So the 1st of September, Bitcoin was trading. You know what? Let me just drag this up here because it's probably good to have this up here. On the 1st, we were trading at that time of the day at 71.60, and then we were just parked down here. And then look at all these shorts that grew. This was a 51.5% rise in short participation, okay? A 51.5% rise. And there's a lot of people expecting Bitcoin to sell off at 7,500. If this is indicative of actual people who are still short, because this hasn't sold off yet, this has stayed high while prices have continued to rise. At 7,500, you know, if it doesn't sell off and we cross that threshold and we form a bullish BART candlestick, these guys are going to get roasted pretty hard. Anybody short here still is not feeling very comfortable, because this is the very painful process for people, you know, that are, you know, you think, okay, technically we should be shorting here because it's gone up for a while, blah, blah, blah. So you have an open short, but the price action is just churning ever so slowly higher and higher. It's not really doing anything. So people who are short, they're seeing these quick breakdowns where it looks like price is going down. They feel better emotionally, and then it goes back up, and they start to feel bad. It gets to be an emotional roller coaster for them. Same thing happens for people who go long during a bear market. But this entire activity here is very, very different than what we've experienced over the last number of months. And I think I'm playing this safe, folks, at 75 or at 74.80. I have anywhere between, well, it depends on what gets hit, but I have some profit being peeled off, and then I plan on adding higher than that, or on any pullbacks that show a lot of support. But I'm not taking everything off the table, but I do want to I want to secure some profits. There's nothing wrong with that. Listen, it's better to secure profit and miss out on some short-term gain than it is to hang on to it forever, thinking that if you don't take profit now, you'll have a bigger win later on. Because nothing sucks more than taking profit when you could have, and then prices retrace a whole bunch and you just lost out on it. So definitely rotate your profit targets as you trade. Don't trade. If you take one big position, that's awesome on an entry, but then pyramid it out. Okay, reward yourself with your trading. But looking at Bitcoin, I mean, there is nothing in the price action saying that this guy wants to trade lower here. It keeps getting bought up. Any of the dips keep getting bought up. Structure here continues to grow, and it continues to look like we're going to have another breakout here pretty soon. It's just a really, really heavy buying market right now, even though the volume doesn't look that great. But again, this is the season for this to happen. Now, one other thing that I was looking at, I think I have the chart down here, is, if you remember down here. Any of the Forex Lens folks, or people who have been here since we started this a couple months ago, where are you at? Okay, June 18th, I wrote this trade idea here. So June 18th, Bitcoin was trading right in the middle of a square of 144, or actually a square of 52, and we see that prices were made a new low for the year, a new calendar low, a new swing low from this major swing up here, and that happened right on the mid of the entire square of 52. As it was a 180-day cycle that we got here. And so, it was a 180-day cycle. So what this told me was that this is a great setup for what's called a mirrored foldback. Mirrored foldback is where you see the same structure repeat itself, and we're not talking about the exact same price levels. We're just talking about seeing if prices will trade the same kind of style. So I think it's kind of hard to see this on the stream if you don't maximize it, and even if you do, it may be difficult to read. But if I hit the play button here, you can see it populate, and you can see how well prices have traded this kind of structure so far. And when I see one or two swings get repeated in a mirrored foldback, I then really follow that pattern quite a bit. So what I did with this, and I'll go over to the same chart here. Let me bring up Bitcoin and the daily. So here's the mirrored foldback pattern on this live chart. What I did is I looked at the black bars here, okay? I looked at the future projected swings. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. And I took a horizontal trend line here, and I drew this angle from these two tops. That's what I wanted to know. I wanted to know, okay, relative to the current price action, where does this show up? You know, where would the high here be found? So if I make this line thicker and make this line thicker, then you'll see what I was doing is I just took this, left it at the angle, and I just brought it down to the high over here, and that is where I see the high. So where I have some profit taking off is right before 7,500, and then some a little bit before here. But then if we trade up all the way to where this is at, relative to where we're at here, then that's sitting here at 77.30. So I'm gonna go 3/4 into profit at that zone, and then wait for it to pull back down. And where this level is at is really, it looks like it's, well, I'd have to measure it out, but yeah. So this has been following this pretty well so far. The mirrored fold back, looking for that swing high to show up sometime here anytime soon. Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out from the June date that posted that idea to the end of the year. It'll be interesting to see how correlated we see these swings happen. So, by the way, maybe I already said this already, but if you have any questions, please do ask. I don't want to be babbling here without people understanding what I'm talking about, because I know that a lot of this stuff is not just stuff that you can read on it's not like on babypips.com or any of that kind of jazz. But yeah, anyways, this looks pretty nice. The key zones right here is this Gann angle here. Let me hide that. This has been holding as a nice support zone so far. Then we've got this angle that is the one that's kind of got me wondering, well, price action is going to probably more than likely, if it doesn't blast right through this, it'll find some short-term resistance. And that is really kind of up against where we had that fold back pattern. So, if we do get a bullish drive higher here all the way to 7,700, those profit targets are going to get hit. And as we're talking, folks, we are probably going to hit the 7,400 zone. We keep painting new daily highs here, new weekly highs. So this is the zone to be looking out for. Cool. Short interest here is not changed. And here's the thing. So if the short interest is like it is, and it remains that way, if the Bitfinex short interest is the same as short interest, that if it's comparative to all the other exchanges, whether they show their short data or not, then that volume of traders still net short, that is going to cause a really, really big short rally. And 7,500 may be blown through and may not be an area that we trade below for a while, or maybe ever. That short volume that exists is pretty sick. I've been watching it quite a bit, and it hasn't really shaved off much at all yet. It's still sitting in this high zone here. So, I mean, there's got to be some pain showing up. We get to the 7,400, and there's going to be some hurt on these shorts. But we're going to observe some pretty crazy action here. In the 192 square, get rid of all these trend lines. Oops. Looking at it from this perspective, we're inside the arc. We get a breakout here, maybe some resistance at 75.62, but beyond 75.62 in here, there is a whole bunch of nothing. And speaking of a whole bunch of nothing, let's look at the volume profile for a moment. on the daily from our swing high. Actually, let's do it just year over year. So we're September, what are we at? September 4th. So we'll just hypothetically right there. And all we really want to look at is the right side of the screen here. So why is that colored like that? That's weird. Weird. Okay, well, okay. Blue is buying volume. The yellow is the selling volume. So looking at the year's worth of trade data from September to now, this is the volume profile. And so we're currently trading just under the VPOC, the volume point of control. This is where this red line represents the area where the most volume has traded at a particular price level. So sitting here at 81, 8,200, that is the most resistance. It's not 10,000. The most resistance that we see on this chart is at 8,200. That is the level that has to get broken and trade above, okay? Everything else below here, we can see we've been just forming a really nice base, all right? So from the current value area down to, 6,000 or 6,300, there's a huge amount of support built here. What there is not above this here is a lot of support. Volume profile is part of volume volume at price analysis, where volume price analysis is just really studying the volume down here given the volume traded at a given time, whereas volume at price is a little different. But how we read a volume profile is that we look for these things called high volume nodes and low volume nodes. So right here, where you see it kind of highlighted, it's darker. This is called a high volume node, and definitely the highest volume node is definitely always the volume point of control. And then as we see, what happens is the behavior of price and how it is affected by the volume profile is that the lower the amount of volume that has been traded at a particular price, the easier it is for price to move into that zone. So for instance, right here, between 12,000 and 13,000, this is a low volume node. I call them volume deserts. And basically what happens is as volume inches up here, it gets sucked into this zone. It'll drive up here very fast, very easy, because there has not been there's been zero supportive buying or selling here. But as prices are moving up, it just zips right past through here very easily and fills this up. And in fact, above the volume point of control, all we see is price levels of decreased volume participation, okay? And so, from here, from 8,200 and higher, Bitcoin actually has a much easier time moving up than it does moving down. Again, I've got the contractors here. They're downstairs, so if you hear the pounding, I really do apologize for that. But, your basement gets flooded. And I actually like to do the work myself. I don't like drywalling. I don't know anybody that does, but I don't mind drywalling, framing. That's all fine for me to do. But when it's the entire damn basement, it's like, it's way too much work. Hire out. So anyways, we've got the 8,200 zone here and not a lot of activity up above. So what does that mean in the short term? Let's get this all back here. Looking at it like this, because we have such a higher, now we're at 7,400, I want to look at it this way. And this is, I want to go over the astrological, no, where are you at? Oh yeah, did this for, okay, so here, if you remember last week or the week before, when was the 24th? Was that, yeah, that was last week. So in financial astrology, we've gone over this before, and I know if you're watching the recording, you're watching live, you've never heard anything about financial astrology before. It probably sounds really stupid to you, but financial astrology is actually one of the really important parts of market analysis. It is the definition of it is it's a mathematical psychology based on the science of astronomy. So all we do in financial astrology is we identify the angles of planets in relation to the sun or the earth, geocentric or heliocentric, and then we correlate those angles with behavior in the market and human behavior on earth. Okay? So if this is the Mars retrograde cycle, this big orange block, so it says Mars turned retrograde on June 26th and exited it on August 27th, we know that by looking at past price action, that Mars has a high probability of a rising market after it exits the retrograde cycle. All right? We know that because that's what the past price action says. All right? We also know that, for instance, that the sun in Virgo, when it enters it, when the sun is in Virgo, there's usually generally a rising market. And then in financial analysis, we know that any trines of the sun are generally very favorable for a market. Not all markets, but for Bitcoin, it certainly is. So anyways, and then we had a moon phase. We had an apogee-perigee cycle here. Basically, when you get a whole confluence, these are all real time cycles. This is just time cycle analysis, really, if you want to get down to the bare bones of it. Financial astrology is just the study of time cycles. When you get a whole bunch of time cycles that are converging on a same date or within the same date range, that is generally a very good sign that there is about to be some type of move in a certain direction, but and it's usually a counter trend move. So we've been in a downtrend for quite a while. All of the culmination of these events, this is one of the largest culminations of cycles that we've had all year. And what's really interesting is that the behavior of markets in a Sun trine Saturn and a Uranus trine Sun, the behavior of markets is to have a relatively it's a very positive move, and it's indicative of not a lot of effort behind it. It seems very easy for prices to move. And so when we've been watching the Bitcoin market ever since these popped up, that is what has essentially happened. We have had a pretty easy rise in value without a lot of difficulty. That is actually one of the behaviors of a lot of the trine aspects. And trine just means that it's 60 degrees from another planet. Okay, this is all it is. I'm serious. Let me show you. This is all it is. Okay, here's our solar system, and this is done with the Earth in the center. This is called geocentric, and then if you want to do it where the sun is in the center, that's heliocentric. But actually, whenever you do this kind of stuff, whenever you do financial astrology, you check things for geocentric and heliocentric, and then sidereal as well. But that's all these are. These are just angles. Okay, like the moon is squared Neptune, the Uranus is trine with Saturn. What? Oh, I did not. Hold on. Let's pull that bad boy up. Let's use a new chart. Okay. Aspects. Sun, Saturn, what was that? That was trine. Sun trine Saturn looks like, are there, well, it's indicative of rising prices afterwards, that's for sure, except for here. Maybe it's not. No, doesn't happen enough. Nope. But I'll tell you what, one of the cycles that's present in almost every market. This is really fun to show people. So this is the sun in opposition to Pluto. Okay, so all that means is that the sun and Pluto, they are 180 degrees from one another. That's all it means. This is not to do with, well, it sounds like you're going to have a bad day if you're a Libra because that Sagittarius you're in love with at work hates you. This has nothing to do with that. This is not astrology. This is financial astrology. This is mathematical psychology based on astronomy, okay? But what's really interesting about this phase is that we have sun opposed Pluto, okay? So that means that they're 180 degrees from one another. And then this is conjunction. That means that they cross the same path at the same angle, all right? Let's look at, well, let's just zoom out here, okay? If we look at these patterns or these aspects, we can see, and because they each show up once a year, there is a high level of predictability associated with these levels where the oppositions are indicative of market lows being at or near market lows, and then the conjunctions are at or near market highs. Does it happen all the time? No. But quite a bit of the time it is. And really, as far as where they are at as far as high or low, sometimes that does not matter, because if we look at other cycles and other technical analysis, sometimes the just the presence of this aspect is enough to add support to to drive down or up. And the other side of this okay, folks, this is, I'm gonna nerd out here for a second because I did this on Friday, I think, but there is, I was reviewing some of my notes, and in one of Larry Pesavento, the guy is a fantastic analyst, and he's written a lot of great books. Some of it's over my head, but when I was going through the notes that I had and reading and rereading some of his stuff, he talked about one planet in particular and then the angles, which was really weird to me because I've never seen really anything in financial astrology where there are single planets angles that you should check out. And he said that you should check out for gold, you should check out Venus at 72 degrees, 36 degrees, and 18 degrees. So separated into fifths, eighths, and sixteenths. Is that right? Maybe? Well, no, that's not right. Whatever. So I did that. And there's Mercury, so I have to go to Venus. And I'm going to put in 36. And he also said to see if they repeat. And so repeat means that every 36 degrees it'll repeat it. So it'll go from 36 to 72 to 108 and so forth. This blew my mind. All right, I'm gonna. Oh, this is so cool. This is one of the coolest things. I have never seen such a correlated swing phenomena in my life. This is just the most bizarre. I'll just shut up. I'm gonna hit repeat and then put the lines. Oh, and then overall views. This is crazy. This shit is crazy. I could not believe it when I saw it. This is just freaking nuts. I have never seen an angle, planetary angle, show up with such accuracy right at the day of a swing high or swing low. This is insane. This is just nuts. Okay? I don't know about, does anybody else think this is weird? Because to me, this is freaking weird. I gotta drink some water. So, yeah, this is just insane, and it doesn't go swing high, swing low, swing high, swing low, swing high, swing low. But what it is telling us is that whatever it seems to be, whatever the short-term trend seems to be, right on that date or shortly before or after, that's a trend change. So here's the deal. On September 18th, if we are continuing up from here, if we're going to keep moving up, then I plan on watching the hell out of this, because this is such a freaky and constant appearance that I can't not. This happens too frequently just to put it off as a oops or a whatever. That was 36 degrees, excuse me, and then 72 degrees was also on there. This is 72 degrees. It's just I got up off the couch when I was doing this on my laptop. Was watching something on TV with my wife, and man, I could not believe this shit. I'm sorry, pardon my French, but this is one of the weirdest things. And I didn't check to see here. I'm kind of getting off a little from the technical analysis and looking at some signals here, but one of the other things that you want to observe here is, in financial astrology, one of the big trigger things is is there a new moon phase there? So that's something we want to check out. Just full moons and new moons, if they show up at or before or after, a little bit before or after, that kind of gives you a hint of what it kind of gives some validity to a move if that happens. So there was a full moon before this and the market went down, full moon before this and the market went down. Really kind of it's in the middle of a phase there. Again, I've got the contractors here, so sorry about that. No moon phase here, not really there. Not really. So just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, this stuff is just this Venus relationship is just nuts. Okay, and so the next one is on September 18th, and that is a important area for me to keep an eye out on, and that would be, I don't know how many days from our swing low that we got on the 14th. Yeah. It'd be within a time cycle. So yeah, something to look at, pay attention to. Ooh, we got a little weakness here as we got some selling pressure. We'll see how much of this is actual selling pressure. We got up to 74.02, and then that's when we started to sell off here. It's quite a bit of volume pouring in, but it's really not moving this market very much. If this gets bought up, it's gonna be pretty crazy. Actually, I really don't want to see. Well, this is the other thing, folks, is the market geometry. The arcs in Gann squares act as natural support and resistance areas, so it's not surprising that we found a little bit of a hiccup there. It'll probably pull back to our support, the mid harmonic here. This is an inner harmonic of 72.53. Maybe. I don't know. There's quite a bit of pressure higher here. This has been kind of a fun market to watch. It'd be interesting to see fundamentally, and then looking at like other markets. I want to see what happens between September and December when it comes to the movement of Bitcoin and then the movement of gold. I want to see what if the gold market and emerging markets, if we're going to see a weakness. Basically, are we going to see weakness in the dollar moving forward? Okay, I think we are. I think we've got a big bull trap going on again in the dollar. This is the dollar index. The dollar index, if any of you are Forex traders or futures traders, you know that the dollar index, it's a basket of currencies that are weighted against the dollar. It's made up of the euro, the pound, the Japanese yen, the Canadian dollar, and the Swedish krona. They've really got to update that thing. But those are the currencies that make it up. And So the dollar index had a nice drive higher. Last half of last week, we drove up pretty high here, and probably facing more selling pressure. What we want to see is if the dollar shows a lot of weakness, then is that going to translate into strength behind Bitcoin? They're not often related. And I know last year we saw the dollar rising and Bitcoin rising at the same time. But so, I mean, there's a lot of folks that say Bitcoin's really not connected to anything. And that's something I would really agree with. Structure wise here, Bitcoin it's displaying a pretty clear wedge, a rising wedge. But when I was looking at it, we have a pretty straight up channel here. Where are we at? So yeah, from here, get rid of that. From that swing, and then from here, this swing. This is a pretty flat channel that we're trading in here, and this top here. If we blow off this top here, it's got to be a pretty drastic drive up, because otherwise we're just going to enter. We're already entering into a parabolic condition here on a short time frame. So, if I'm looking at this trend line here, then we have another trend, followed by another trend. Oops, wrong one. Parabolic moves are, depending on who you listen to, this is what I look for in a parabolic move, is a new trends, but they rise. The trend lines are rising. The pitch rises. So, we had this nice stable one here, followed by here, and then we have another one. And if we wanted to, we could draw it from here as well. And it gets too high eventually, where it just the momentum slows down. So the only way that we get out of this parabolic rise is to have a quote unquote BART candlestick that drives it higher and essentially creates conditions for a new trend. So we have a big drive higher here, and we would see some flagging patterns or a pullback down to the base of the top of this channel. Otherwise, a pullback back down to this channel, or even down to here, 6,700. That is totally possible too. I think that's a little too far, but I don't think that one. Yeah, let's try extend lines. That's the same one we were looking at. So yeah, we'll see what happens if we come back to the base here, or not the base, but the top of this regression channel. See if that holds a support or not. And if it doesn't, next level support is looking down here. But I tell you what, if we continue to see this getting bought up just like it is right now, I mean, this is really telling us something, that there's a big bull mode coming. And I tell you what, I say that a lot. I tell you what, I went to the grocery store this morning. I was listening to SiriusXM Patriot Channel, and right before I got out of my truck, I heard one of the advertisements was Bitcoin's going to rally past $30,000 this year, according to pundits. Do you want to miss out? By the time you read it in the Wall Street Journal, it's too late. Really, by the time you listen to it on the radio, it's too late too. But there's been advertisements on the radio now for people to get into some ETNs and to call your broker about how to participate in the Bitcoin blitz and blah 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 blah. So okay, so the stuff out there to suck in the sheep is starting. Okay. And if we're in here, we're not sheep. Okay. If we've been trading these markets ever since 2008 or 2010 or 14, or even if it was last year, if we're still around and trading these markets, we're not sheep. We are exactly in the area that we want to be for the next bull run. Okay, this is a textbook Dow chart, Dow theory right here. This is textbook Dow theory. This is like market analysis 101. Okay, look what happened back here. What did we have? We had a flattened market, kind of slowly rising. We had the accumulation phase, followed by we had our public participation phase, which is all of this stuff really from this swing low down here in November. This is public participation. Then we had the excess. This is really just the example of a bubble, followed by profit taking, which was happening all up here. And then we had distribution, and really the panic phase was over here. So then all we've done is we've really just formed a base ever since April. We've been forming a base. Okay. The news has continued bearish. The news continues to suck, but we're not seeing drastic drives lower in the price action. Okay. That is actually one of the signs that you're in an accumulation phase, and that the lower prices are over, and that you're transitioning into the next expansion. That is when prices are still trading near their lows and the sentiment is still ugly from the traders. Traders are still bearish on it and the news is still bearish, but prices are not reflecting that anymore. That is the technical and the fundamental aspects telling you that the move down is over. Does that mean it is? No, but that is the high probability. And this is where pros get in. Actually, pros have been getting in ever since April and buying at any of these lows. People have been accumulating down here because you got to accumulate, you got to wait. Bitcoin, when it moves up and it makes those significant massive gains, it only happens over a very short period of time and then experiences a collapse. And this time last year, okay, this time last year, September, all right, if Bitcoin could go to 60K or 80K, there are some really smart people that are saying that that's a possibility. Now, that sounds kind of stupid, right? Yeah. I mean, if it was September 4th of 2017 and Bitcoin's trading at 4,500, if somebody said Bitcoin's going to reach 20K by the end of the year, you're stupid. No way that's going to go up 5 times. It did. And we're trading at 7,500. You do 5 times of that, where's it go? Every Bitcoin has lost 80 to 90% of its value 14 times, and then it has always rallied back exponentially higher. So there is no reason why we should doubt that trend. That's been going on for 10 years. That is long enough to find an established trend. And in 10 years, every year, minus 2 years, I think, 3 years actually, Mt. Gox years, Bitcoin has had an exponential rise in value. And so there is no real indication to suggest that is going to change. It's very easy to believe that it's not going to get up past 20,000 this year, especially if we've been trading, ever since, well, especially if you're new to trading and you started getting into Bitcoin at 13,000 or higher, then this has been like the worst thing of your life. But actually, you're pretty lucky if you're still interested in trading and you've suffered this. This is one of the worst bear moves I've ever seen in anything, really. So, these markets are just going to rise between now and December. This is the seasonality for Bitcoin to go up, and bless those idiots going to college and putting themselves in debt for the rest of their lives. But I know that there are college kids who take out or use their loan reimbursements, or not reimbursements, but the excess money from their student loans. God, what are those called again? I forgot what they call those. When we had to go up to the office and they used to give us a paper check. Now I think it's just automatically deposited. But it's not kids, but adults between the ages of 40 and 20. There's a 30% of that age group has traded or owns some type of cryptocurrency, and that is going up by a large amount every year. especially because people 40 and younger are very distrustful of. They're very distrustful. Well, very uncertain about the future. Like, we don't have the same happy, economic, hopeful outlook like our parents or our grandparents. Thankfully, those generations have decided to rape our futures and our children's futures by, making sure they live comfortably, but they've been saddled. That's no problem saddling the rest of us who are going to be living through paying back that debt. But we're very distrustful of government, and we're very distrustful of government being able to supply some type of financial security. We're just a very skeptical group of people, 40 and younger, and cryptocurrencies represent a way out, and it's a source of value that is not something that can be confiscated very easily at all. So anyways, I kind of went on preachy there, but anyways, we may be approaching a little bit of a top here, but really looking at the overall market conditions, I definitely want to see what happens with the rest of the day as we get closer to 3 and 4 o'clock Central Time, which is in 2 hours, an hour to 2 hours. Really want to see how this pans out here to see if there's actually a lot of follow through selling or not. Otherwise, I mean, really, there's a pretty easy breach higher, and so. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed today's session. We'll be back again tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time. Forex Lens members, I'll see you tomorrow morning again at 7:30. The rest of you, I hope you guys had a great weekend, a great safe Labor Day weekend. Hopefully we're going to have a great trading week. And wish you all the best, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.